Hello there. Most decisions you sweated this year didn't matter, and the few that did, you made them on autopilot. Your competitors aren't out hustling you, they've trapped you on a battlefield where everyone but them loses. Today, we discuss changing that field and more. Let's go.
Welcome to the Leadership Lounge Book Club. My name is Chris Duncan. I'm joined today by Alan Edwards, Jay Jacobson, and Shannon McGaughy. Good to have everybody here today.
Good to be here.
Ooh.
If you're watching us live on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, we can see your comments, so please give us some feedback, ask us a question, or leave us a comment. If you're joining us live next week, you can catch up on past episodes or get the weekly reminders. It's all listed at our book club page on Sedaris.com. That's Sedaris.com/book club, Sedaeris.com/book club.
In the first rule of book club, we always talk about book club. This week, we covered chapters 241 through 280. And this is the book, This is Strategy by Seth Godin. The assignment was to come ready with your favorite chapter and your least favorite chapter, but most importantly, what will we take away? What will we apply? Well, we'll start with Jay today, but first of all, if you are an outsourced IT service provider and want to stop sifting through resumes and start building your team, MSP Hire is for you, and they are our beloved sponsors. And you can get the right hire the first time, msphire.com. So, Jay, you want to kick it off for us? What was your favorite chapter and why?
Well, I found a lot of good material in these 40 chapters, and it's surprising as we get further into the book how much more in-depth the thought process is in the author. But as far as my most meaningful part of the chapter in terms of where it relates with communications, I was looking at chapter 257, Communicate with Intent. And there's some good points, and I made some notes on it. It reminds us that communication should not be accidental. In leadership, every message carries weight. What we clarify becomes culture, what we ignore becomes culture, and what we tolerate becomes culture. So the question isn't simply, did I say it? The better question is, did I communicate it with enough clarity, care, purpose, that people can understand it, trust it, and act on it? That's where better communication begins, and that's where healthier workplace culture starts to take shape. So you have to, as a business person, as a leader, you have to understand that even the simplest communications you make create the culture and the environment in which you will operate, which your clients will experience you, and which your coworkers will exist in harmony or disharmony with you.
Jay, I also highlighted that chapter, and what struck me was actually very early on in the chapter, because it talked about it begins by being clear about our roles and purpose. And I even took that all the way back to leadership, where you have to communicate who we are and who's acting in what capacity to even know what platform we're communicating from and how to interpret those messages.
Yeah, and if we don't understand where we're coming from, it's hard to have a cohesive message.
Yeah.
And so that's the underground or undergirding foundation of this whole chapter is understanding that who you are and where you're going.
Mm-hmm. And Jay, I know you've been focusing a lot on communications. I'm curious, in the whole history of the book so far, we're getting close to the end, have you found other chapters on communications, or is this really the first time he's touched on it?
This is really the first time he's hit it with a full chapter. He's hinted at it, and there have been bits and pieces throughout, scattered in and the rest of the book. But this really, for me, put it into a nutshell. It says, this is why communication is important. These are the pitfalls, and these are the things you need to be aware of when you're developing a communication strategy within an organization.
He's like, oh yeah, communications. We got to do that too.
They want me to do something. They're going to communicate it to me. Yes, I can get that. Yes.
Yeah. Strategy without communication. That'd be something.
Yeah, we don't. It doesn't work.
Yep.
I might be guilty of that a couple of times.
Alan, which chapter struck you?
261. Problems are opportunities. I find myself unique that this comes natural to me. Not shying away from probabilities, but I also have a favorite segment. I'm just going to read 2 short sentences for you. He lists 5 things that make up a problem. And I tend to get those 5 things. I don't know 5, but it was okay. But when all 5 are present, we get to do our work. And the work is that of making a decision. I'm paraphrasing now. And if they're not present, this is my favorite part, then we don't have a problem or decision to make. We simply have a situation.
Mhm.
A lot of good stuff in this chapter. I recommend that one for a deep read. But I just all the time I see my clients saying, "Oh, we need to, for example, replace this software tool." I'm like, "Okay, what problem are we solving?" Well, this tool's better. But what problem are we solving? Like, in what context is it better? Is this because I mean, for those who've ever replaced a software tool, there's a lot of work to do. You got to learn a new tool, install a new tool, stop your old habits, move all the data over to make this tool useful again. It's a lot of work. And why are we doing this?
Yeah. Well, the outcome looked the same as the last decision, and yeah, he makes a sentence there I noticed too. I really appreciated this chapter where he says, "If there are no problems, there's no need for projects and no room for growth." And that's simply put, that just makes so much sense if we can remember that. So I appreciate that too.
Yeah,
and he also made another note, underlining message in there: is the problem actually controllable by the decision maker? Are you beating your head against the wall and identifying a problem that you really don't have any control of? It's like asking to change the weather. Can we do that? No, we have to live with the weather we have. So we have to identify those things the decision maker in this can make some difference in.
I see a little tie in there to our previous book, The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins.
Yes, yes.
You really can't control other people's behaviors.
Exactly.
But what can we control? We can control our behaviors.
Yeah.
I hate when teams miss quarterly goals and they're like, "Oh, this, we can't control that." It's like, well, A, if you can't control it, why is it a quarterly goal? And then B, you're probably wrong. There are things we can do to control that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nothing's out of control.
Yeah. Might feel like it sometimes.
Yeah. I agree.
Otherwise, your strategy might have been incorrect in the starting point. If you're not allowed for those uncontrollables, then you need to look at your strategy again.
Interestingly, I don't have a chapter in front of me, but it was in this reading section. He talks about it. It's okay to make some guesses, assumptions, and trial and error, but more at the beginning of your strategy than at the end.
I like the comment he made and I don't remember what chapter it was, when he said, when you do a plan, a business plan, do 3 plans.
Yeah.
The best one. And that's not something I'd ever even consider, because business plans are not fun to make.
Yeah.
But do 3. And then it'll point to things that you hadn't considered in the other 2 plans.
There is a pop culture movie that I like to reference that nobody ever references, and I use it for a business lesson. And I think it's related. So I'm going to try it and see how bad it goes. World War Z with Brad Pitt.
Oh, that was a terrifying movie. Go ahead.
I liked it. Kind of like a macro zombie movie versus the individuals you see a lot of zombie movies. But he goes to Israel because somehow they planned ahead. He's like, well, how the heck did these guys plan ahead? And they had, I think it was called the 13th man principle. They have a 13-person council. And if every decision is unanimous, a 13th person must take the opposite view and go do the research to make sure they didn't miss something. And it was in that way that 13th person was like, actually, I think we could at least build these preparations just in case, and it would be better for it. And they did it. So like here, right? 3 business plans. I mean, I didn't like that advice, not because it's not good advice, because how hard business plans are to make. But I certainly see myself pivoting all the time.
But there's a great power in that voice of dissension, because it points to that one thing that you may not have considered and just thrown out as, oh, that's not important. But it forces you to address it, discuss it, and put it to bed, so to speak, before you continue.
That's where I would suggest a lean canvas, if nothing else, just to make it doable, especially being a small business and not having a team to help you rewrite 3 business plans. But a lean canvas is definitely doable.
How would you describe a lean canvas?
So that's basically a framework that was started a while back. I don't know. I can't remember the reference of who created it, but it's really going through the bare bones, the main points of a business plan. So it's lean. It's the meat and bones without any fluff and any so it's a very targeted process.
I believe it was a spinoff of Toyota's Kaizen projects.
Oh.
And lean was more tailored toward general operations versus manufacturing.
That sounds right.
Cool.
Those people that are connecting to us on Facebook and YouTube have Google right in front of them. And we really encourage you to type that into Google and get the facts.
Yes, absolutely.
Ask your doctor if a lean business plan is right for you.
You heard it here wrong first.
We provide no medical advice or legal advice here.
All right, Chris.
May cause heartache
to bring up?
I had a whole string of chapters I liked, and I think it's mostly because sometimes it's just good to be reminded of the things that you've forgotten about. And I had a mentor one time that said, "These, things work so well, we stopped doing them." And this felt like that to me. So, we were so successful that we stopped doing the things that we made successful. But the chapters were a string of them, 242 through 249, I believe. And they all centered around finding your niche in the market. And again, this is what appealed to me was sales and marketing driven. So I get to use that quite a bit. One exercise was the 2x2 grid exercise. And my plan was to put a link in the show notes with some examples of how that works. But basically, it's the least desirable at the top, or not, sorry, least desirable, but extremes, smallest and to biggest, and most comfortable to least comfortable kind of a thing in this 2x2 grid. The example used was cars, which I always love car examples. And the idea is that you need to solve all of those solutions for your clients. So if you're selling cars, the most powerful one is a Hummer, and the fastest one is a Porsche. And then there's the minivan and a pickup truck in other quadrants, solving other solutions. And that's your offering. And your offering needs to appeal to all of your customers. You can't put a tricycle in that grid and expect your customers to accept that that's one of their choices. They could technically commute to work on a tricycle, but they'd be much happier and more likely to buy from you if you had a Hummer, a SUV, a minivan, or a Porsche. So the idea is that you need to have your offering align with what your customers are actually going to buy from you, because if you're offering things that they won't buy, you're probably not going to sell any of them. So that was what really engaged me. And then one of the fun chapters that came right after that was the example of a 100-foot yacht that's missing a foot, a 99% built item. A 99% built item still sinks. A yacht missing a foot of it is still going to sink. Doesn't matter how much you want the boat to float and how close 99% is, but it's still going to sink. The idea being that your product offering and your deliverable to your customers needs to be 100% available and correct and fit to them, because 99% still sinks the boat. And if you want to get ahead, build the whole boat.
So I find it interesting because I think you had a better take than I had in those chapters, because I also grouped them together. But that 2x2 grid, you were talking about you have to be on the right grid to begin with, because right, like
Right.
people who
Yeah.
are looking for quality or speed or whatever those things are, you're going to be on the right grid. But then he went on further to talk about where on the grid you may want to be.
That's true, and I did gloss over those, and there were some following chapters that really went into that. Some examples of businesses that tried to pivot in the grid, where you are a luxury brand, and all of a sudden you want to pivot to be a more generic consumer product, and how that works, and whether it succeeds or fails. And the examples he gave, they failed, but you're absolutely right. Know your grid, know where you are.
I think you gave some examples of both. There's a constant, let's call it a capitalistic desire to move towards center, right? Because the center is where the mass is. Like you got some quality, you got some speed. It's very broad appeal. And you say, oh, it's a larger market. But as we've learned, like the riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of brands who are, high quality, high cost, and that has its own niche. And those who sell low quality, low cost, there's also a huge demand there as well for affordable cars.
Yeah.
And the notes I made on this chapter is that you need to sell your differences, because that's what people buy. They don't. Otherwise, you're selling a commodity. So when you are able to identify, number one, your differences, but then market to those differences. Say, this is what separates me from the rest of the places you could buy that sports car from. But focusing in on that and really being good in that one little spot, so that anybody who's out there that wants to get somebody who sells this particular, you're the person to go to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think Seth Godin generally advised against moving to the center, but he also listed a couple of examples of some successful center draws. Then you have to be in one of those grids, right, where you don't have any other competition in the center.
Yeah. Yeah. Or then he also, in a following chapter, gave an example of creating your own grid. Like if it's not out there, how do you create the grid? And that was interesting to read. One of the examples was Coca-Cola and Sprite, being that they're similar, but they're actually in their own grids. A beverage that's clear with no caffeine, and a beverage that's brown with lots of caffeine, and that fits a niche, and they own the space.
Yeah. Until 7-Up wanted to compete with them.
Yeah.
I guess 7-Up is caffeine, doesn't it? I'm off track.
Yeah, that's right.
I noticed one of my favorites was chapter 245, which is kind of goes into that a lot of what we just covered, it kind of touches on that, especially about a niche to get rich, right? So the focus. So it says chapter 245 is going to places the competition can't go or won't go. So I thought that was interesting because they used an example of maybe an organization, a company that won't do any business with people that are unethical. They only stay with clients that are respectful to, the environment, or, thoughtful of the environment. Those are the only kind of clients they'll go for, which puts them in a special niche or category in itself, which is similar to what Chris was just talking about the differences between, Coke and, any other beverage that like Sprite or whatever that. So it just sets you out on a different course. And so what I was thinking, here's how I was thinking of applying it, is that I was looking at how some people, they won't go that extra mile to simplify things, and maybe have their reasons or lack of reasons because they just chose not to decide different. To be more streamlined and exclusive. And I'm looking at that from a group's point of view because of facilitating masterminds. I'm thinking part of my strategy is to recognize where the current system or status quo is more afraid to miss out on everyone. So they're leaving this laser focus to a particular group, and they're giving more of what I would consider more of a watered down version, which there's a place for that for the masses for discounted price, but there's room for this, but there will be a demand, I believe, for mine with the right distinction of an ideal client that's very specific. And so I want to go, I'm looking at going places where my competition either can't go or won't go, and there's the gap. So I appreciated that.
Mind the gap.
Mind the gap.
I think Netflix in that chapter, they talk about they created something totally new.
Yes.
I mean, the model had been, okay, we leave a cliffhanger so you come and join us next week. Netflix changed all this and said, we're going to dump the whole season all at once. So now the person who's got a weekend that they don't have full of something and wants to binge watch something, they don't have to wait a week to get to the next episode. It's totally changed the way we see streaming services. But it didn't exist before Netflix. I mean, you had to rent a new movie. You had to wait for a week. But now everybody binges watching their favorite series. And they can't wait for that whole series to drop.
What I think is interesting is they've stopped doing that. They've gone back to weekly releases on Netflix and Disney Plus and all these things, and I'm spoiled the other way. I will no longer watch movies that are live. Shows that are still airing.
Yeah, I wait for them to queue up.
Yeah, and you'll see that the market will swing back that way because they're testing the water. They're trying to figure out, can we make this work in the old system, and forgetting that how well something new worked. And that's a danger when you step out of that norm of wanting to get back to the safety of it.
Yeah.
And I think they will find that most people are very, very comfortable and happy with that binge watch model. So dump me a whole season. I want to watch the whole thing. I don't have to reconnect with all the characters a week at a time. So
yeah. I also think that this is also about how, this is a tangent and not related to the book at all, but I'm going to go ahead and hijack it anyway. That we don't watch, or TV shows and streaming services are not the same as they used to be in their content creation, meaning that it used to be on a Tuesday, you could sit down to an episode and it would start and it would end and it would be its own topic. And you didn't have to watch the 22 episodes before it to know who the characters were and what was going on. Today, you have to, it's basically a movie that's divided into a season, 20 episodes or whatever it is. And I don't think until we go back to that old format where every episode is its own content from beginning to end, it's really hard to not watch them in sequence.
But why sell one when they can sell 20?
Exactly. But it also, in that example, like, can you imagine just in your favorite series, in your favorite TV show series, going back and randomly picking episode 4 to watch? You'd have no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
But if you go to Happy Days, you can do that.
Yeah.
Because the Fonz is going to be doing something different this week than he did last week.
Hey.
Whole new story.
Happy days every day.
And I think how this is applicable too in a business setting is that somebody that's really passionate about this type of thing is that, movies in general, and they're just not able to get their foot in. Like if they had the idea, well, actually the idea was already given, like we said, that the way there's a series now, but there used to be one showing and then you'd wait for the next week or what have you. If they were the first one to go back to the old style, that would be their opportunity, that gap to get at least a sliver of the pie. And so that's why we need to, I think that's how we could look at business too, is that that's part of this whole game, right? Yeah. That there'll be gaps in the game that you could play that game the right way.
I want to tie this into one more piece when we are getting short on time, which is time as an asset. Like Netflix, all these places they can tie this in. Seth Godin talks about how what you do with your time is hopefully building assets for use later. An asset can be your experience. In the case of these streaming services, these assets, or they have all these old shows now that they produced 10 years ago that you can go back and watch and they're still good. And if you treat your time as no longer dealing with crisis all the time, but you have this strategy, the set plan where time is on your side, and you start taking the actions today, even if nothing goes according to your plan, or at least the way you planned it, you are building these assets. They're going to serve you later. And I found that very powerful, and that might end up being my biggest takeaway from the book when we talk next week.
And I liked his definition of assets because he didn't limit it to our traditional terminology when we think about cash in the bank or investments or real estate. He talked about the assets of the knowledge base you have, the skills you're developing in terms of, are you building those assets over time, or are you working for somebody else and letting them use your assets?
Yeah, building their assets.
Very good concept. It was one of my better takeaways, I thought, from this book. Things that we should take home with us.
All right. Well, let's see how we can turn this into takeaways. So for everyone watching right now, based on today's discussion, what's the one takeaway you want them to walk away with? You want to start, Shannon?
Okay, let's see here. I'll say that just like chapter 253, constraints are a gift. If we could look at constraints, which can be defined as restraints, restrictions, limits, or chains, if we could think about that other people have those, other businesses have those, and so it's actually a gift because it gives us an opportunity to get in the game, right? If there weren't those gaps, there weren't those problems, we would have no opportunities. And so I think to look at those constraints as a gift and think about that as you build your strategy.
Outstanding. Thanks, Shannon. Chris, how about you?
I have lots of conversations with marketing teams about what makes them unique. And this week, I want business owners and leaders to think about their offerings. Who are their top 3 competitions or competitors, and who are their who are they more like? What makes them unique in their playing space? And I want, the hard part is being really honest, because sometimes it comes out, no, we're just exactly the same. And that honest conversation is what I challenge people to have, is to really think about what makes you unique, who are your competitors, and where you lie on that offering grid to determine what your offering is and how you can stand out. And I think that's the conversation to have.
It's a whole other conversation right there. Yeah, for me, I'll go back to the last point that, you have all 24 hours in a day. How much of that time can you dedicate toward building assets, which is, to me, playing the long game? Think about your time, build the asset with your time. That's what I would want to take away. Jay, you want to finish this off?
Yes, I wrote some notes down. Before your next important workplace conversation, pause and answer 4 questions. What is the purpose of this communication? Who needs to hear it? What do they need to understand, feel, or do afterwards? And what could be misunderstood if I'm not clear? And so when you take those 4 questions, they can prevent a lot of confusion, a lot of conflict, and they can help build a cultural situation that's positive in your organization.
Very good.
Love it. So some exciting news, mostly for the 4 participants here. Next week, we are reading the final chapters of This Is Strategy, chapters 281 through the end. I want everybody to come prepared with your thoughts on those last chapters and the book as a whole. I think this is a good time for us to spend some time and reflect on all 287 chapters?
97.
297, good grief. I thought at first it was a typo, but it turns out there are 297. Also, in other news, worldly news, we have selected the next book. In a landslide of social media voting, the book Crucial Conversations has been chosen. So that's the next book. It's Crucial Conversations by Joseph Grenny, Carrie Patterson, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzer. So if you want to get a head start, that book's starting in 2 weeks. There will be links on the sedaris.com/book club page for the book, the audio book, and all the things going around with it. For those of us that have already read the book, this will be a good return to that book. But for everybody else, it'll be nice and new. So I'm excited about it. I think this is going to be a good book choice, and it's a classic. And I think it's going to have a whole different way of talking about it than this 297 chapter book was.
Absolutely, yes.
Can't wait.
Yes.
Can't wait. 17 chapters to go. All right. Please, for everybody watching at home and playing along, like and subscribe us at your favorite channel. We're streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. I would like to thank especially our hosts and guests today. Thank you, Alan, Shannon, and Jay. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you to our sponsor, MSP Hire. We will see everybody next week for the conclusion of this fantastically long book. Same time, same place, Thursday at noon Pacific. Bring your book and your thoughts.